this computer. There we go. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to this first of my return to the Meet the Candidates series, which was so popular a few years ago. And my candidate to interview today is Laura Christensen Colberg, who is running for one of the Supreme Court positions. And welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, I saw by your voters pamphlet statement that you grew up in Wenatchee. What's a favorite memory you have of that childhood in Wenatchee?
So, a favorite memory, we were in an old house, probably one of the first houses that was ever built in the valley, if you are looking at some of the really old maps. And it probably wasn't to code in a lot of ways, but we had an upstairs balcony that would allow us just as kids to walk onto the roof. And my brother did more of the, run around the chimney kinds of things, but in hide and seek games that we played in that house, inevitably somebody ended up on the roof. And, it's probably, again, not a really
No, that's
safe
fun.
childhood memory, but it was fun. We would, roam the place and just kind of, it was in the day and age when you could get on your bike and go anywhere and spend a quarter across at the grocery store across the street and actually get a candy bar or something like that. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed the freedom of just sort of knowing where all the streets were and being able to roam around town as a 10, 11, 12-year-old and feel pretty safe.
Okay. Well, and for people who are listening, I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm going to ask Laura at the end to close with her campaign pitch. But right now, we're just going to get acquainted with a few things about it. The things that a candidate always brings to their job is the things from their background. One of my favorite questions is actually, what was your first job where you connected getting paid to doing work?
Mhm. So I was 11 when I started babysitting for the kids up the street. Actually, I babysat my sisters when I was 9, and I got like 75 cents an hour when
I'm
my
not sure
parents would
sisters
go
count
out.
as yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like, I was in charge, but also, yeah, outside of the home, I think I made $1 an hour for two or three kids. And I finally, before I graduated from high school, I was up to like $2 an hour for babysitting. But outside the home, I worked in food service at Central Washington Hospital. It
Oh,
wasn't like the candy striper, it was in the actual foods. I was either on cafeteria duty or I was restocking the galleys or I was pushing the carts and serving trays to patients or I was just on cleanup crew after the dinner hour. It was a 4 to 7 kind of job shift. So it was after school and through the evening meal.
okay. What was something you learned from that experience?
I learned the importance of just doing the dirty work because somebody has to do it. But also walking into a patient room, just the value of a smile and something to say, hello, Mrs. or Mr. So and so, your meal is here and just those small little personal connections,
Mhm.
giving a smile, getting a smile in return. On the flip side, you're doing the dirty work. On the front side, you're actually tending to a person. And so
Yeah,
both ends of that.
yeah. There's some things I'd like to ask candidates about current events, which is and one is what's a recent book that you've read? Not a legal book that you had to read for work, but a recent book you read.
I read Dune. It wasn't a choice of mine. A year ago, I asked each of my adult sons to recommend a title or book they would want me to read and perhaps discuss with them or something that made an impression on them. And so I had two titles each month. And I did not get through March or April keeping up with the schedule because some of their interests and some of the topics were just hard and oppressive and, not my taste in literature, but Dune was on the list and I put that off for a while, but I did pick it up and finished it and was more pleasantly surprised than I thought that I enjoyed the read. I think I tried to read it some years ago and it just, the dryness of the description, I didn't get very far, but this time I did enjoy it.
I've read that as well. Science fiction can be a very acquired taste, and if that's not your normal reading, that's really interesting that you pushed yourself to push yourself through it. Another good question I think is about movies. It's another kind of cultural thing. What's a movie that you liked that in this past year? Something that stuck with you?
Oh, in this past year, I'm trying to think of movies I have.
I don't go to
I've
movies very
been
often either.
to
Pick any movie, just a movie that has
any
stuck
movie.
with you.
Okay, the two movies stick out where I was laughing and crying at the same time. One was Life is Beautiful. The putting humor and and gamifying, it sounds horrible, gamifying the Holocaust situation with the young boy, and then just the humor that was brought out, but crying at the same time at the tragedy of that. And then Steel Magnolias, I mean, that dates me
Yeah.
from way back when. Again, just the interaction of women doing real life together, laughing and crying again in the context of what life hands you. And so those two are on the list of ones that just, compel me in two different opposite directions simultaneously.
Okay. Well, to get back to the race, then you are running for Supreme Court Justice. And
Yes,
you have a long history in family law as well as on the bench. And I saw that from reading the voters pamphlet. Most people do
yes.
vote on judicial candidates based on the voters pamphlet. So I want to give you 1 to 2 minutes to what would you like to
Thank
expand
you.
on so people understand your writing in the voters pamphlet and can consider you as a candidate?
Excellent. So, yes, three things I think I bring to this race that make me unique in this race of three persons. Only two will go on to November, so it's important to vote in the primary August 4th. The judicial experience piece, I think, is significant. If it's important that you choose a Supreme Court justice based on someone who's had some judicial experience, then I'm the one who has the most. 18 years serving as a pro tem court commissioner. Often I find people don't know what a court commissioner is. And so if you think of if the courthouse is a hospital and all the judges are doctors, we're the ones in ER. We're the triage doctors, the judges that are taking things that need immediate attention and that can't just wait months until they're assigned a judge. These are often family law cases where you need temporary orders, where you need to make an emergency restraining order or figure out who's paying the bills before the case is over. I'm wearing the black robe, I'm reading the cases, I'm making decisions, I'm signing orders, and it's intense and emotionally high emotions, high conflict. That's part of the job. So I've been doing that. I've made thousands of decisions over those 18 years, and it's a different experience from being an attorney where you're looking, at one point to win a case for one argument for your client, where you have to keep an open mind and weigh both sides. Do your best, apply the law, look at the constitutional requirements, follow the law, even if you're not sure exactly that you want it to result with the result you have to reach. So wherever the law goes, you go, even if you're not personally in favor of that ultimate outcome. But these are temporary decisions. They still make an impact on families. And so I take everything seriously. The family law aspect, I think, is important because it's a voice that the Supreme Court hasn't had in Washington State. Someone with a family law background like I have, coming in and forming. It's a collaborative opportunity with 8 other justices on any given opinion. So when a family law case comes to the court, that will be valuable. Certainly, I'm not going to know everything that all the other justices know, and I'll rely on them to fill me in. But ultimately, you want to start with each case as it comes to you, read, review, apply the law. And that leads to the impartiality that is the component that I have. One person in my race was just appointed by the governor 6 months ago, and she used to work for him in his office, and she was co-counsel with him. And so there's a lot of close ties to their relationship that perhaps they think alike, or maybe he handpicked her because he thought maybe she'll rule in a certain way. We don't know. And because of that closeness, I think there's a question of whether she should recuse herself or whether there's a conflict of interest. And from the outside looking in, it just looks like it's a little too close and partisan, if you will. One person choosing one justice. The other person in my race is an attorney who's done some tax work. He's been a tax attorney for 30 years, and that's all he's done. And he hasn't had any judicial experience. I've been an arbitrator, court-appointed arbitrator. I've done some mediation. I have seen all sides of the litigation spectrum, and I think that's, again, what sets me apart, as well as not having any partisan ties that would mean that I look like I have some sort of political debt to pay or would have to recuse myself. I think I bring that neutrality that you want in a judiciary. If the judiciary turns partisanship or it turns partisan, then we've lost our checks and balances, if you will, between the different branches of government. And so an independent, neutral, impartial judiciary who's going to follow the Constitution and not go with an agenda. I think that's the choice that I bring to this race, and I hope that voters will consider that. and also
Okay.
read the voters pamphlet, go to my website, Laura for the number four position1.com is where you can read more of my background and my bio. So thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. My push this election season is to get more people out to vote and make sure everybody votes in judicial races and
Absolutely.
votes thoughtfully. So thank you for joining me, Laura.
Thank you very much, Silani. Appreciate the opportunity.